Hey all, welcome to another episode of Warmth at Work, where we learn from forward-thinking culture leaders on the best ways to create warmth at work in a remote working environment. I'm your host, Max Greenwald, CEO of Warmly, which is a way to create stronger relationships with your coworkers and customers during Zoom meetings. And with us today, we have Chase Warrington, head of remote at Doist, and been at Doist for a very long time and has a lot of opinions on what it's like to create an awesome culture at work. And Doist is talked about as a top company to work for, given their great remote culture, probably thanks to Chase. So let's kind of dive in. Chase, maybe you're calling us from Spain. That's a little far away. Tell us about how you ended up there.
Yeah, you might notice I don't have a Spanish accent either. A bit of a Southern U.S. accent, I guess. So yeah, this is not my home, I guess, but it's where I've been living for the last 4 years. And Doist is a fully remote company. We've been remote first for about 15 years. So actually one of the quote unquote pioneers of fully remote work for quite some time. So we've got like 100 people in 35 different countries across all time zones. And I happen to be calling Spain home right now. And but we're free to kind of pick where we want to choose to call our home at any given moment. So we've got people that are full-time digital nomads, a lot of people just living in whatever rural area or random place they want to live, on islands or outside big cities, in the middle of major metropolises, whatever calls to you. We want you to be able to live and work from there. So yeah, that's kind of at the core of our company DNA, actually.
So I feel like the role head of remote did not exist like 5 years ago. What is this role supposed to be?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out too, I guess. It is a relatively new role, pioneered by a few people. Darren Murph is one of the guys that's really known for leading the charge with this role at GitLab. And it's now evolving. It changes company to company. I've talked to a lot of the other people that have this similar title, lead remote person, or head of remote, or director of remote operations at different companies. And the one thing that kind of seems very consistent is that there is no real consistency, because it is such a new role. Everybody's kind of doing it a little bit differently. But at Doist, our mindset is, remote first is super critical to how we work. It always has been. Not only are we a remote team, but we also produce tools for remote teams specifically, communication tools like Twist, and Todoist Business, which is built for productivity. And so it's important for us to really do remote at a very high level. And so my job is really just to make sure that we're operating at peak efficiency in terms of being a remote organization. And it's super fun. It's a challenge because we're already pretty good at it, to be honest. Like, we've been doing it a long time. And so it's not like we need to tear things down and rebuild them, or creating from scratch. It's more keeping up with all the awesome tech that's coming out, like things like Warmly, which didn't exist, not that long ago.
Right.
And making sure that we're implementing those things here at Doist to stay ahead of the curve.
For sure. And maybe for you and, personally, what makes Doist an awesome place to work for you?
Well, what drew me to Doist originally was two things. One was the remote first mentality, because that was totally not a thing at the time. You can see in my card here. Let me see if I can do it. There we go. And my card that I've been here for over 6 years. And 6 years ago, remote first was like really unheard of. It was very, very hard to find companies that would allow you to just work from anywhere. So that forward thinking mentality was really cutting edge and exciting for me. I'm also kind of a world traveler. I like to live in different places. And at the time, I believe I did my interviews from 3 or 4 different countries, and just really wanted that flexibility and freedom. But with that comes a lot of things. Remote organizations that thrive are really built on a very trusting environment. You have to trust your teammates, knowing that you can't see them face to face. It's very much so focused on deliverables and the actual work, not just showing up and glad handing and being present. Yeah. It's very much so focused on transparency and all kinds of things like this, and a really having to put people first. And so Doist does all those things, and truly does try to put our people first, and business kind of comes second, and the rest take care of itself. So that was very attractive to me from the beginning. And I'm proud to say it still shines through today. I think we have over a 90% retention rate. People stick around. And in the tech world, that's kind of unheard of. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing journey for me. I've really enjoyed it.
That's incredible. Are there any like fun traditions or unique activities that Doist does that you think stands out to employees or to you?
Yeah, I mean, we're big on. I will say one thing: we're very big on allowing people to come into work to work and disconnect and go enjoy their lives outside of work. We're so kind of before even getting into like the rituals that we do within work. I think one of our awesome rituals is that we encourage you, like, this doesn't have to be your life. You can come in, you can work, you can do an awesome job, and we're not really big on you putting in tons of hours or participating in events that you don't want to participate in. You have your life outside of work, and we want you to embrace that. That's what remote can do for you, I think, is kind of separate work from life a bit and allow you to actually enjoy the other part. Now, within the confines of the office, we want you to have a good time too. So there's a lot of things that we do to kind of foster the human to human connection, which can be tough in the remote environment, I think we have to admit. So some of those things are like, we actually do have offsite meetings. Like we have twice a year, we get together as a team, once as a whole company in one place.
Yep.
We're getting ready to go to the Alps in Austria
Wow.
in June. Just got back from another thing we call a mini retreat, which is like individual teams get it together. I was just in Lisbon for that with my team. So we actually do embrace getting people together in real life, which is awesome and always very rejuvenating. Then we also do things like we do virtual meetings. We've got something called Doist Presents, where monthly we bring one of our Doisters in to do a virtual session on something. It could be leading a yoga class, it could be a meditation, it could be
Oh, so it's not work related. It's like kind of something that they want to share with the team that might be external to that.
Yeah, specifically, we have two different avenues here. We have one called Doist Presents, which is like something outside of work. So for instance, next Friday, one of our teammates is going to be leading us in a cooking class, cooking something from his home country that's very unique to the rest of us. And then we have another one called Doist Talks, which is kind of like a TED Talk, where someone presents something very focused on work, and there's Q&A and stuff like that. So we try to provide one of each of those a month. And so, yeah, we've actually got a handful of activities like this. I could go through each one of them for you, but it would take a lot of time. But the key, I think, is that they're not all synchronous. So those are synchronous video calls. We actually have a series of activities that we do, games that we've created, and things that can be done asynchronously to prompt human to human connection. And those rituals are super important too.
And is that done through like Slack, for example?
So we actually work in a product called Twist, which is our product. We eat our own dog food.
Nice.
So Twist is a team communication tool built specifically for remote teams, and even more specifically for teams that want to hone in on asynchronous communication. We actually built the company on Slack, but at one point when we reached about 40 employees, we started hitting some real headaches with Slack fatigue. And that's when we decided to create Twist and kind of build something that would work better for us. And so that's what we run on now is Twist.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I feel like there's certainly some limitations with Slack. That obviously it's a great tool to get started with, but especially as you think about the asynchronous communication world, let's call it upgrading something like Twist is we've heard a lot of companies move toward that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like Slack's an awesome tool for what it's built to do. It's built to be an instant communication tool, and like they will talk about it being an asynchronous tool, and it's just hard for me to see it that way because it feels very synchronous to me. So Twist was built with asynchronous communication in mind from the beginning, and it's pretty amazing. Actually, we've done like surveys of our customer base, and over 95% of them are heavily distributed. So like we've got tens of thousands of teams out there using Twist, and almost every single one of them are hyper distributed remote teams. So it really is resonating with the remote crowd that needs to rely on async more than your average in-office team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess for employees that come into a company, maybe it's their first remote working job, or just that they want to onboard effectively, but sometimes it's hard when you don't know anybody, you don't know where anything is. How do you think about like the I don't know if you call it like baby Doister or new Doister joining the company, and how do you as head of remote think about their onboarding and making sure that they integrate well into the company?
I'm so lucky. Like I mentioned earlier, I I transitioned into this position, and it's not like it's not something that needs to be torn down and rebuilt. A lot of the infrastructure is there, and our people ops team has done an amazing job over the years fine tuning our onboarding process to match with the style of the company, which again is like working hyper asynchronously, which means we have to have amazing documentation. We have to have an amazing onboarding project, which we do in Doist, one of our other products. And so new Doisters, when they get brought on to the team, one, we've already screened them for, we're making sure that they're the right type of person to work in an asynchronous environment. And that is a special type of person. You have to be an amazing written communicator. You have to be okay with, making decisions and moving forward without getting approval sometimes and things like that. So we're already kind of screening for that person, but then when they get in, they're kind of indoctrinated right away in the way that we work through this Todoist project, which walks you through, suggested books that you should read that kind of talk about the way that we work, articles that we've written, pages in our handbook, threads within Twist. And the whole first week at Doist is you're not really supposed to do anything except for absorb that stuff.
But you don't do it. Nothing. You don't do anything at Doist in the first week. All right.
No, there's nothing. And actually like really encouraged to like work pretty short hours and just, it can be, it's exhausting, man. I mean, if you're entering a new company, there's so much, you've got 15 years of documents and threads and stuff to read. There's just no way you can do it. So we want people to get in. We see a lot of things as like, in a very sustainable way, which I think is healthy. That's, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And like, we don't have to, we're not optimizing for hyper growth super fast. We want people to get in and be comfortable and move forward. That doesn't mean we're not ambitious. Like we work at a pretty fast pace, but we want to get people in the door and make sure they're comfortable first. We also do a mentorship program, which is super key. We actually fly you as a new hire to go visit your mentor and spend a week working with them in real life, which is pretty cool as well.
I love that. Well, how about for like first time or like managers of teams? So like, for example, at Warmly, like we recently had one of these, like, bring in people to hang with the team and like facilitate like a game over Zoom. Do you recommend stuff like that for managers trying to build team culture, or what are some of the most effective tips that you would give to managers trying to connect their team?
So one of the things that I think is really important is to think very critically and intentionally about how you're going to use your synchronous time together. Most of the thriving remote organizations are pretty heavily leaning on async, which means that time when you actually are together virtually or in person has to be highly optimized. So you need to really go back, like don't go through the motions of just thinking, this is how I would do it in the office. That's how we'll do it here. Don't transition the conference room of the office to your Zoom room and expect that they're going to get the same output. So starting with being very intentional about that and saying, okay, what is the point of us having this 1 hour one-on-one meeting or group meeting? And a lot of times what I find is that time is really best used for the human connection, for the personal connection that you want to get, checking in on teammates. For instance, we'll use a lot of our group meetings, like the first half of them will often be like chit chat, a conversation starter, a team building sort of thing, just something to get us connected more on a personal level. And so I think there's a lot to be said for not trying to squeeze too much out of those.
Something like a little icebreaker over here you can toss over, things like that.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Well, if you could distill into just a few sentences, what do you think creates warmth at work?
Oh, that's a great question. I believe that if we're talking specifically about remote teams, then I think it comes back to what I was just talking about being intentional about how you're going to create that human interaction. Distributed work is distributed by definition. You're at a very far distance, and you have to be very intentional about how you're going to create those human interactions. So if you want to create warmth at work, then you need to facilitate it via the right tools, via the right best practices. You need to go back and rethink all the best practices that you have in place and how you're going to make them more warm for your teammates.
Love it. Well, for folks listening, I think, clearly Doist is a great place to work. If they wanted to think about applying and coming to join y'all on your quest, what would be the best way to get in touch?
Yes, we are hiring. So yeah, please do check it out. We've got a jobs page, doist.com/careers, which lists all of the positions that are currently available, and we're constantly adding new ones. So definitely keep an eye out.
Perfect. Doist.com/careers. Putting that up for everyone to see. Thank you so much for your time, Chase. Really enjoyed having you on to chat. Thank you for calling in a little bit later, your time in Valencia. And you owe me some paella next time I'm there.
Yes, a fellow paella lover. I love it. I'm also a Chipotle enthusiast. I would agree there. So
let's go.
We have a trade due.
I'll bring you over a Chipotle from the States. Well, anyway, thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Max.
And we'll see you around. Bye.
Bye.